Moving on slightly, as we're still covering the subject of asshat politicians for sale, last week the documentary film Under the Influence began a fundraising campaign in order to get money to finish and distribute their film. Again, instead of me trying to explain what it's all about, check out their trailer and my interview with filmmakers Dave Hagen and Jennifer Cusentino.
What if America no longer belonged to the American people? What if it was now under corporate control? Has war been waged against us by forces we can't even see? If our democracy is being stolen, how do we take it back?
Big global corporations accountable to no one but the profit motive now run our democracy.
It's a corrupt system. It depends on money. It depends on special interests. They never ask what's good for America.
Moneyed forces wield such disproportionate power to influence governmental functioning compared to that of the average citizen.
About 70% of the population, they have essentially no influence on policy.
From the insurance, banking, oil, gas, coal, drug industry, health insurance industry, you name it, they are in effect corporatizing our entire political economy, and that is called fascism.
This is a conversation about the American people defending our republic against a tyranny.
The tragedy is that it's legal. They're doing it. It's allowed to happen. How is that possible?
Oh, say, can you see? Our founding fathers created a system of checks and balances, so no one group, no single interest could dominate our society. Our parents and grandparents fought to preserve that American way.
Every generation is a steward of our democracy. Other generations did what had to be done in order to get American democracy back on track.
Dr. King had no guarantees that his vision was going to come true.
All of us must stand up together.
The suffragettes had no guarantee that the women would ever be able to vote in America. The original environmental movement, there was no guarantee that if they struggled on, they would get the EPA or they would get any of these gains. They all came out of a passionate commitment and belief that no matter what, I am going to continue to speak up.
Campaign finance reform is more than just an item on the legislative agenda. She takes the issue so seriously, she's willing to walk all the way from California to New Hampshire.
I've got 16 great-grandchildren, and I'm damned if I want them to be brought up in a country where a poor man has to sell his soul in order to run for office, or he has to be a multimillionaire. We're losing our democracy and nothing is being done about it.
The United States is a nation where there is an almost genetic attraction to democracy. It's not just a good idea, it's how we're born and created.
We are the change that we've been waiting for. It's not going to happen from up down. It's going to happen from us insisting that it changes.
When you see masses of people rising up and willing to take a stand, it emboldens other people, and then people realize that they have a right and a responsibility to speak out.
Tonight, we're going to start a fight to take back our democracy.
Who's gonna take on the big machine? Who's gonna stand up and save the earth? This small starts with you and me. Who's gonna stand up
personally, I feel like the time has never been more relevant for this film to come out, especially with the elections and the need for America to wake up to the fact that corporations are pretty much running our government. And the last time I checked, I didn't vote for Georgia Pacific as my president or Monsanto as my president. And I just feel that with the amount of super PACs that are being formed and Citizens United, that it's never been a more perfect time for this film to get the message out.
And I'm also curious, how long did it take you to make the film? And I know that documentaries typically take quite a while. And of course, in this current system, things change daily and weekly and by the month. And so how did your storytelling in this documentary shift with things that happened as you were making the film?
Well, they've been shooting and filming for, I think, going on 4 years now. I think they've been collecting footage and out there in the world interviewing people and traveling around the country meeting, the people who are, both, everyday Americans and, sort of the more academics and celebrities and people who are trying to lend their voice to this conversation. And it does take a while to put all that together. And we're still putting the film together. We're even doing our Indiegogo campaign fundraiser right now.
You bring up stewardship of the American democracy, which is, of course, one of the reasons that we live in a corporatocracy is because the people have fallen back and aren't pushing for their democracy. So why do you feel that has faltered or even failed in this particular generation? Why do you feel that apathy is so rampant?
Well, I think part of it is because, our generation, I don't think we've really had to deal with anything so systemic and socially, culture-wide that really required us to get in there and push and fight and get involved. The closest thing I've seen to that in my time has been the Obama election. But that was the first time I'd really seen, large-scale collective activism really go do something and have like an instant result. Previous generations had their hands full with the civil rights movement, getting the Environmental Protection Agency created in the first place, giving right for women's votes, suffrage, and things like that. So something that Marianne Williamson points out is that every generation has something they have to do to continue the stewardship. And this is ours. This is what we have to do. We have to take back our democracy from the influence of money.
And I also feel like the reason that it has faltered, I feel that there's been so much distraction and disinformation that's been put out there, and when you're bombarded with so much crap, you become numb, you turn off to it, and you feel this general malaise and apathy because how am I going to get through all this information and how am I going to actually figure out what the truth is, and then we become the situation of where you're the frog in the boiling water, And it's almost like until something really bad happens in your own backyard, do you really awaken to the fact that this has actually been going on for a long time?
Yeah, and I think that, there's a lot of disillusionment as well as the disinformation because, like you said, a lot of people were really relieved when Obama was elected. And then, of course, it was more of the same, if not worse, in a lot of cases, like continued warfare and offshore drilling, the environment, drone bombings, whistleblowers. So the whole, hope and change ended up blowing up in our collective faces. And so I think a lot of people wanted to just say fuck it to politics after that, which of course only perpetuates this issue of corporatocracy. So you feature, you have a lot of amazing people in the film. And you feature people like Daryl Hannah, for example, who's an environmental activist. And it's interesting because a lot of these, I talk about this a lot on the left, like the left has a problem by focusing on just one singular issue as opposed to following that red thread to, for example, the corrupting influence of money in politics. And do you feel that environmental activists like Daryl Hannah or others that are fighting, for example, maybe for healthcare or things like that, do you feel that there is that strong red thread that exists, or are you trying to draw that connection by having environmental activists and different specific issue activists in the film?
I think that I think there is a common thread, but I think what we're trying to do is actually highlight it. As you mentioned, Daryl Hannah, is very much about environmental issues and climate change, as Mark Ruffalo is about banning fracking, as Neil Young is about GMOs. I think what we're trying to do is remind everybody that the root of all our problems collectively is corporate money influencing our politics and our politicians in DC. And while they're working on the issues from their end, we're trying to also remind them that this is also the root of the problem. They all know it. It's just that I think they just get kind of, sidelined with the issue on the ground, so to speak.
I don't think that most Americans understand what the issues, the larger issue is. And so what they think they're going to do is they're going to identify a problem, and then they're going to go take the problems to some version of the government and appeal to them to help solve the problem that's been identified. That's not really how that's going to get solved. The problem's much more systemic. It's much broader. And so when you back up and sort of recalibrate your sights, it's kind of the whole system. Well, then how are we going to solve that? That's where we want to be. We want to be asking, how do we solve something when both the left and the right are kind of captured by the same system? And what it does is it makes us stop looking at the system as the solution.
To learn more about Under the Influence and to donate to their current Indiegogo campaign, check out undertheinfluence.com. Undertheinfluencefilm.com. It's right there.